Booyaka, booyaka! Differential time. All right. Here we go. Starting with the thrust bearing assembly. And here's the first thing that is very nice that I wish that all RC manufacturers would do. They give you a assembled thrust bearing. You've got all the tiny little balls in this little race already, so you don't need to manually put each individual little ball onto here and balance it and stuff. And that is a good thing, because balancing those little tiny little BBs on there sometimes is a little tricky. And so what I'm going to do, they do include grease with this kit. They only have one little tub of it though, and it looks to be diff grease, which is silicone based. And I'm actually going to use my own greases for this. I'm using Tamiya molybdenum grease for the thrust bearing, and that is just some high temp, low viscosity stuff, really good stuff. Slide that down, slide this guy through, there we go. You can hold that like so. Already got a bearing over here, and this is going to need one of these. Actually, I'll put the small ball bearing on. This is pretty thick. Normally these aren't that thick. I'm going to use just a little bit of my silicone-based diff lube, which is equivalent. I'm using associated stuff, but it's equivalent to what's included in the kit. This is just a more convenient tube, easier to get it out and put it into a small area. That goes in like so. Looks like this is a 2.5 mil screw. Yes, 2.5. Good. And those halves are ready. Now I just need to get the actual balls into the main diff, the main piece, the main gear. Now, this can all go together, I hope. They're actually using a Phillips screw gone through the diff. Unfortunate, but it is what it is, right? Well, in between the cuts, I was having a little bit of trouble getting this screw to thread in properly, and I just noticed that the screw itself is bent. So that's not good. So I just used a vise to try to straighten out that screw a little bit. Got a lot of hardware problems, too many hardware problems with this kit so far. Off camera I used this little jig to help with the process. It's just anything flat that will fit in between here on a vise, and then I put that on a hard table so that I could push down with a lot of force. Push down from the gear and also from the driver itself to help compress that screw that's in, or excuse me, the spring that's behind there, so that I could then just find the spot and eventually get it to thread into the lock nut. So that was really painful. Started off on a high note, ended on a very low note. But now I have a differential, so I guess that's a high note again. Should have been much easier to get to this point. Now I've got a differential, so I can hopefully move on to, yes, the rest of the transmission. All right, transmission half, got a very beautiful anodized aluminum idler gear. I think I'm going to go ahead and use the moly grease again, just a little bit of it. I really don't like to run transmissions very wet. Use as little grease as possible. The internals of the transmission are very, very traditional. It's the same basic design that's been around since the first associated stealth transmission, if not before then. And these two should just go together, and there should be no problems here whatsoever. This should just practically snap together. Should be a nice snug fit. There it goes, snapped, perfect. Very, very little play in the end here on the top shaft, and the diff, there's no play in the diff whatsoever. And that's actually not a good thing. I would have preferred there to be just a slight bit of play instead of none, because when I tighten the screw down from the side, it's going to pinch it just a little bit. Could put a little extra wear in there. Okay, I'm happy with this. And this is the nice machined one with some deep cooling fins on it. It's pretty thick, looks like it's a 4mm plate, which is awesome. Not too tight. You do not want to pinch the gear cases or halves together too tightly, or your bearings will not be happy. This one down here, you only want to tighten it until you see that gap close up, until it just closes. It's threading itself into plastic here. It's machine threaded. It's a black oxide screw, so it's going to get good traction on the sides in there. You do not want to pinch this, you just want to hold it together. Looks like this is a proprietary design. I don't know if this is going to be compatible with ones from any other company. Some folks glue their pads together. I don't. And then a nice big 4mm lock nut. Just because I can, I am going to use an aluminum one. Okay, so there's the transmission. Very good. What I'm going to do now is install the motor. This is also from CK Hobby. This is one of the CK Hobby brand, relatively generic 540 sized motors. Censored motor with adjustable timing, although it does not have timing marks on it. This is an 8.5, so it's a pretty hot motor. I think this should work out okay as a starting ratio. Of course, I'll quickly adjust if I need to, but I think that this might be okay. I might even need to gear up. I'm completely unfamiliar with this motor yet, so I'll be doing a mini review of that kind of at the same time. But right now, really nice pinion gear. Lightweight, machined aluminum, hard anodized, imprinted with the number of teeth. I love this pinion a lot. It's my new favorite pinion. Ah, boo! Kind of like with Traxxas gears here. It's a little bit off center. The spur. The mesh changes just ever so slightly as it goes around. I mean, it's within a tolerable range as long as I set it right. I set it to be just slightly on the tight side at its tightest point, which makes it just slightly on the loose side on its loosest point, but still, gotta make these things round. Gotta put the holes in the center. It's a very common problem. It's not going to affect performance, and I doubt it will affect durability, because like I say, it's within a tolerable range. Why do I have so much trouble with that word? Tolerable. You get on there. Truck, transmission. There we go. Got to, oh, that locks together nicely. Remember at an earlier stage, I said the back was flopping around, but once the transmission got on, it would stiffen up. Oh yeah, yes, even without the shock tower bracing it up here on the top. Yeah, I like that. A lot of problems with this kit along the way, you know, little things, problems with the instructions, because they didn't include the upgraded pieces, problems with hardware, lots of problems with hardware. But the kit itself, as it goes together, I really like the truck so far. Okay, and this is where I would have had 4 countersunk 3x8 screws here, but I stole a couple of them from this bag earlier, so I'm now paying for that. So once again, hex screws to the rescue, 2 3x8s, they're right there. You know what? Those are going into aluminum. They're going into the really rear pivot block using a little bit of thread lock compound there. And I did notice while I was doing that these can be easily over tightened. You do not want to take them down all the way, because this piece of plastic back here that's the motor guard, very thin and can be squashed in there. So very important to use enough thread lock compound on there that the thread lock compound is going to do the locking itself. You're not going to have physical force that's actually locking those in.